Hello, my name is Alberto Malmierca. It is with pleasure that I greet you all once again from the Environment Statistics and Climate Change Unit in the Statistic Division of the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, ECLAC. In the following video, we are going to study the difference between the data, statistics, and indicators, since it's very important to understand, manage, and differentiate them through this course. We will also provide examples to clarify beyond exhaustive definitions what we mean when we use these three concepts of environment statistics. Many times they are used indistinctly, as if they were synonyms, but the data are not the same as statistics, and statistics that are dense multipurpose are not the same as environmental indicators. These are very different, and we will differentiate them from two perspectives. The first one has to do with the moment in the production chain, from raw material to synthesized products selected and highly processed. And the second one will different analytical objectives and are used by different users, so that from the statistical point of view, data, statistics, indicators, environmental accounts are clearly differentiated, concept that it's important to handle properly in this course, since the statistical processing starts from the microdata that is generated. Let's look at the stages of statistical processing. For example, take the application of a survey as an instrument of primary data collection, but it can be any type of source, from the most traditional such as census, surveys, and administrative records, to the less traditional such as remote sensing, monitoring stations, among others. And those microdata, they need to be coded. They go to a database, ordered and aggregated, and the data must be validated, structured, tabulated, and their metadata is built, which is the description of the processes in which that data was produced in primary form and become statistical series. We often refer to the description as technical sheets or methodological sheets that exhaustively describe what is the way from which the data are organized, to how they are processed and validated, what is the calculation formula, what is the source, what is the definition, scope, limitation, relevance, and all we need to understand in order to work in a comparable way, spatially and temporally. Therefore, metadata is a primary and extremely important thing in this statistical processing. Once we have all this ready, environmental indicators can be obtained or produced. These are for specific purposes and meet a series of selection criteria because they are sets of quantitative information that have been chosen within a set of potential environment statistics, which are integrated with economic and socio-demographic statistics. Understanding the importance of interaction between the economy and the environment, we build also multipurpose environmental accounts. Summarizing, the data need to be validated, described, and structured to compile them into a statistical series and process them to achieve the development of an indicator that allow us to support the different policies or programs or to the problem initially raised that we want to answer it. So, to define with a little more accuracy these three elements that we saw within the stage of statistical processing, I will explain to you what the data are, the statistics and the indicators. Let's start with the data. Data is the representation of a variable that can be quantitative or qualitative, that indicates a value that is assigned to things and is represented through a sequence of symbols, numbers, or letters. The data describe empirical facts. Therefore, environmental data are a set of observations and measures on aspects of the environment. A data by itself does not constitute information. It is the processing of the data, as we already seen, that provide us with information. Now, let's look at the statistical series. They are data sets that have been synthesized, structured, validated, and described according to internationally accepted definitions or to the official and national definitions, and according to standard methods and statistical procedures. In this way, they can be transformed into meaningful statistics that describe the state and trend of different aspects. In this case, the environment and the main anthropic and social process that affect it. It is important to mention that not all environmental data that is produced eventually becomes statistics. It depends on the specific informative purpose. In this course, we will show you the FDS is the framework of the environment statistics because provide a framework that identify environmental and other data that fall within its scope and contribute to structuring, synthesizing, and aggregating the data into statistical series and indicators. Here we have a classic example of environmental statistics produced, already presented and disseminated in a table, with the information ordered and validated for greenhouse gases emission by sector for Latin America and the Caribbean. Environmental indicators are a combination of statistics or a statistic that is significant and that is related and defined with the aim of communicating in a context a key, unequivocal message that does not require expertise to be decoded, understood, assimilated, etc. Its purpose is to establish and quantify trends and contribute to the monitoring process of follow-up and evaluation of the current and forward direction in which aspect of the environment and the relationship with society and humans are manifesting themselves depending on whether or not it approaches goals and norms that have been determined by the country for the city for the corresponding territorial space. They also serve to assess progress, the impact of intervention programs and instruments in the pursuit of environmental and sustainable development objectives, and allow us to objectify how changes have occurred and measure them in a specific condition or area over time and across space. Here is a sample example of presentation of an indicator. It is not presented in a table, but usually in graph and/or maps in a very clear way. Here you can see how for our region has been losing forest coverage of the terrestrial territory, being able to show that 3 have been loss of total forest, including natural forest and forest plantation, of 138 million hectares we lost. See the proportion of forests also that have been decreased of 7%. Another special case of indicator are indices that are defined as a measure composed of several variables, and that is more complex because it's combined and synthesized more than one indicator or statistic that is weighted within a single index. There are examples of several agencies and research institutes that have been carried out in this area of environmental indicators. Statistics such as the Living Planet Index, the Environmental Sustainable Index, the Environmental Performance Index, and all of them have advantage and disadvantage, like all indices. It is not that environmental indices have more disadvantage or advantage, but they are common characteristics of all the composite indices that exist, such as the Consumer Price Index, the Human Development Index, among others. So, the advantage of index type indicators is that they provide a very valuable aggregate measure that has communicate advantage and can serve to increase citizen awareness and alert and encourage decision makers to intervene on deterioration processes. On the other hand, among its possible limitations, it is methodological soundness and the method of weighting the constituent variable of the index. All the variables have the same weight within the index, or is given different weights, and why. And also there is a lot of discussion about which variables are finally incorporated into the index and which variables are left out and why. Here is an example. First published 20 years ago, for 2 decades, the Living Planet Index, LPI, has tracked the state of biodiversity by measuring the population abundance of thousands of vertebrate species around the world. The 94% decline in the LPI for the tropical subregion of the Americas is the most striking result observed in any region. The conversion of glaciers, savannas, forests, and wetlands, the overexploitation of species, climate change, and the introduction of alien species are key drivers for this result. Summarizing, data is a set of observations and measurements on environmental aspects and its related processes. Statistical series is a set of data that have been synthesized, structured, validated, and described according to methods, standard statistical procedures. An indicator is a combination of significant statistics collected and defined and communicated a message within a context. Now we have to be careful because not all quantitative information can be presented in the form of an indicator. Sometimes the quantitative information available is discontinuous or comes only from a specific study, and in the emergency domain of environment statistics. This is not strange. In fact, this is a new area of statistical development for all countries of the world, not only in the country of Latin America and the Caribbean. We often have invaluable quantitative information that comes from a study of a specific research that is not enough to sustain an indicator over time because it does not have the periodicity of updating, or there are not resources to sustain it updating over time. Nevertheless, it generates important information. So in this case, we suggest that they be presented in an attractive way through infographics, and this infographic allows us to show a photograph of what is happening. We don't want to say that in particular example, this data cannot be transformed into indicators, because several of them can. What we want to show is the power of an infographic that combines quantitative information of several aspects and contextualizes it. Now, we have here another way of understanding the difference between statistics, indicators, and accounts. I will not talk about the data because we already know that they are not products that they are going to give to the general public. These are not disseminated to the general public, so we will see from the perspective of production, dissemination, and who are the user of this information. That allow us to distinguish statistics of indicators and accounts. For example, statistics have as primary element their characteristics that are highly voluminous and multipurpose and are direct using expert and analysis to prepare report of the state of the environment. Tax to policy reports and multilateral agreements serve to compile different aspects of environmental accounts and are required to build indicators. For example, the environmental indicator of the SDG same time framework are presented, as we had already said, in the form of tables. Statistic compendium are database. However, environmental indicators are intended to inform specific elements of policies and programs, and conversely, statistics are their sets. There are a limited number of ultra-powerful indicators. They are not large or many. In this sense, they are very well selected. We always say environmental indicators are built from a response to a demand of a user, a decision maker, and not understanding everything that exists. So that is another way to differentiate it, and the indicators are directed through their dissemination for the use of decision makers, of authorities, and do not require any expertise to be decoded because they are presented in a form of context and explanation of what the indicator shows. So this form also allows us to differentiate them through the use and through their characteristics. Finally, I would like to show this table that relates the statistics, indicator, and account from another much more technical and methodological perspective, which is in the production process that we previously showed from left to right. Now we are showing it from the bottom up, from the data to the statistic and the indicators and the accounts, and how each of the steps of the product that we have just shown are regulated by international statistical recommendation that elaborate a group of experts through the world, and that are made by mandate of the UN Statistical Commission, that is the body that guides us in the statistical work, and that annually brings together the direction of statistics and the agencies involved in the production and use of statistics of all statistical domains. In this slide, it's shown that all the product of statistical and accounts are, so to speak, quite developed. We can see the internationally accepted methodologies. These are only the central manuals, but each of these manuals has related tools that help in the compilation and in the survey, in the processing, so that the resulting products are of the best quality and of the best possible comparability, and of course to facilitate the work of countries, since they can be guided through this recommendation, adapting them to their particular circumstances in order to generate statistical indicators and this system of environmental and economic accounting. Well, I appreciate your attention, and I hope that this knowledge will be the basis for the deepening that will be done during this online course. Thank you so much, and take care of you all.